when you look at the other platforms and you like Instagram, there's so much competition on these platforms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And you can carve out an audience there for sure. But there's also this element. There are so many people creating content in the real estate space that you being able to kind of break through is much more difficult than LinkedIn. LinkedIn doesn't have the same competition for content that the other platforms do. And as a result, you can go in there and you can make a splash pretty quickly. So it's a competition thing, right? It's like you can go and like have stiff competition, or you could come to a platform and carve out a name for yourself pretty dang quick. I love competition, but if I have the choice of going to a platform that I can start winning on much quicker and build a name and a brand for myself compared to a platform that would take a lot longer and might not even work, I'm gonna choose option one all day long.
Well, hello everybody. How are we doing today? Well, welcome to the Texas Real Estate and Finance Podcast. I am your real estate navigator, Mike Mills, a North Texas mortgage banker with Geneva Financial, and I come to you each week with experts in the real estate realm to help you find your way through this game of homes. And today is no different. Now, let me ask you a question. Are you grinding away at your marketing each week and putting in the time, but just not getting the results that you're looking for? Could it be that things right now are just a little bit slow? And is that kind of to be expected? Well, maybe. Or it could be that your message is getting lost in a sea of other real estate professionals shooting house tours and rapping about real estate on Instagram. Well, there's an old saying in baseball that says, hit them where they ain't. And I'm here to tell you that it's true for marketing as well. If you're swimming in a huge pond with a bunch of other big fish and everyone's hunting for the same thing, then maybe it might be time to look for a new body of water. And today I have an expert that's going to shed some light into a world that you might not have ever considered, a world that could be a huge source of business and connections if you know how to play the game right. But as always, before we get rolling, if you find today's episode helpful in any way at all, then do me a favor and hit the subscribe button or share it with a friend. You guys are the reason this little podcast keeps breaking downloads records each and every month, and I want to keep the momentum going. So do me a favor, subscribe to the show on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify so you don't miss another episode. Oh, and if you have a client that needs help finding that perfect home loan, then by all means, send them my way as well. I blather into this microphone twice a week, but my real skill is helping you get 8 more referrals from your clients after we close a deal together. So if you want to know how, then give me a shout. All right, so my guest today is the founder of Win Social. He's a 40 under 40 top mortgage professional, a LinkedIn coach, co-author of Rethink Everything, and the creator of the fastest growing marketing newsletter in the mortgage business, the Win Weekly newsletter. He's helped countless real estate professionals stand out on a social platform that very few in our space think about when it comes to marketing activities, but might be a hidden gold mine that many of you had not fully tapped. And he's here today to share his secret sauce with us. So please welcome to the podcast, Mr. Dan Samaska. Dan, how we doing, sir?
Great, man. Great.
There we go.
Great. Good to be here. Here.
Thanks for joining me, dude. I really appreciate this. Nobody, I'm sure, knows this, but we know each other from a previous life. We go way back to the beginning. Dan and I actually worked together. We kind of were both brand new to the industry, or relatively new, coming in together, and then kind of, both left the company we were at, kind of went our separate ways, and here we are back again. So small world we live in this real estate land, yeah?
Full circle, man. And when we got in, I'm sure they told you the same thing. There's 2 things that they told me. They said, welcome to the mortgage industry. You'll never get out. And then the other thing was that it's a small world. Yes. Never burn bridges, right? And yes. And so those have turned out to be very, very true things. So
yeah, you have to be careful, especially, I'm sure we remember some folks that left places and kind of went out what we would call scorched earth, right? We joke, I was in the restaurant business for years and years, and people would quit and then take their arm and run it down the line and knock off all the plates, and it's like, it's probably not the best way to go out usually.
Man, not at all. Not at all.
All right, so let's jump into it here because I want to get your thoughts. So in the world of Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all the social platforms that are out there that everybody is beating the drum on every single day. How in the hell did you land on LinkedIn as the one that you were going to spend your time focusing on? Especially because you've been doing it for a while now, and it's becoming obviously a bigger and bigger platform these days. But back when you started, nobody was thinking about LinkedIn. This was the place you went to get a job. So what drove you, or really made you want to jump in headfirst to this platform?
That's a great question. For me, it was like I didn't really like the other platforms as far as like creating content, and at the time, I was not active on Facebook really at all.
Hmm.
I just had it so that I could be connected with family. And then, Instagram was what I had a private Instagram where like I would be friends with really nobody except really good friends and family. Um, I just didn't want to like utilize social media because it was just annoying. The
Yeah.
only good experience I really had on social media was LinkedIn. Like I got a few. Um, I was the guy who always takes the recruiter message.
Hmm.
So they DM me, and like, why would I not like just have the conversation, right? If they seem to be real,
Sure.
and
Yeah.
those have
Well.
led to some really good things.
Yeah.
So like I knew that I've kind of had this for years, like understanding that opportunity exists on it in some shape or form.
Hmm.
Um, and I was like, I was kind of at this weird juncture where I we were entering a very difficult market in the mortgage industry. All right. So 2022, everything started like, drastically changing, coming to a halt. And I had, I knew that our company was going to, the company that I was running the marketing department for. I knew that we were going to be selling the company. And so it was one of those things where like the companies that we were looking at selling to, they already had their head of marketing, right? And
Right.
uh, so I'm going to be out of a job. And so when I first started, I was thinking I need to like have an insurance policy for myself. And in order to do that, I felt like I needed to like establish my brand and network better, and do those things. So that's really why I got on LinkedIn at first. And then as I started getting into it, I realized like that this is way more than what I thought it was, and the
Mm.
opportunities on here are insane.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about my journey on, and it's just been a ride ever since, man. A great ride.
Well, I when I started doing this podcast a couple years ago too, kind of, generally around the same time, a little bit before that. But we all know I'm like you. Like it was one of those things where I knew social media was important, right? If you wanted to grow your business, and, especially in a relationship based business like we're in, like it's one of those things that you have to be in front of people as much as possible. But I also just didn't like doing it. I would get on Facebook occasionally. I would get on Instagram rarely. Like it was just something I just didn't spend a whole lot of time. I spent more time on Twitter than anything else because it was like news source, and that was stuff that
For
I could
sure. Yep.
read and find out. But I really wasn't on all the other ones. But I knew that everybody else was. So it was like, all right, I got to figure out a way to do this. And you got to kind of find your lane and figure out the thing that you like to do, the thing that you'll stay active in. But what I found too was that going through that process, and doing this podcast, and doing things like that, when you start focusing in on one particular thing, you learn a ton of stuff. So as you're trying to grow your brand, or whatever you want to call it, as you're trying to grow yourself, there's a lot of falling down and learning and making mistakes and doing dumb stuff and going, okay, I can do this better. But going through the process of doing it is kind of half the battle. It's like you can learn and read about stuff, but until you actually start doing it and going through it, it's a real challenge. And I've been paying attention to what you've been doing out there, and the thing that hits me about what you do better than anybody else that I see on really a lot of platforms, and this is a rarity, is, man, you are consistent. Like you are putting stuff out every single day, and putting thought into it. And it's not just a random, post or something out there. Like you're really actually putting some time and effort into putting those out there. And I think that, that's a key that a lot of people that are looking at whatever platform they're going to be on, the consistency of it is a big player. So when you were growing your business, and finding your way through all this, what was it, specifically, that you looked at LinkedIn and said, okay, I actually can form a business around this? Like, where are the opportunities that you saw, especially in the real estate world, which a lot of people in our space don't spend a lot of time here?
Man, I'll tell you, it's a lot easier to stay consistent when you start seeing the results,
Mhm.
right? When you're first starting, it's the toughest part.
Right.
Just getting started, not knowing if the things that you're doing are going to lead to the outcome you want. Um, I would imagine that what is this episode 147 for you?
Yep.
Uh, I would imagine that episode 147 looks a lot different than episode 7,
Yes, it
right?
does. Very much
you
so.
you
Yeah.
have learned a lot, and you're a how to navigate the conversation and the topics that you want to hit, and your audience even better. And so um there's just but you're not doing this because you're not, I mean, you're getting something out of this.
Mhm.
And when people really get going and rolling on, like, for example, LinkedIn, it's it's a lot of like, I think this is going to happen, but it takes like 3 to 6 months for the thing to happen.
Yeah.
And it happens at like a you know 3 years down the road looks a lot different than 3 months, but on the 3 month mark is when I started really seeing some results.
Mhm.
And everyone I talk to who's like consistently engaging on platforms like LinkedIn, they've had this like light bulb moment. And when you have that light bulb moment, it's like a drug, man. Like
Yeah.
you get that hit and you're like, holy crap, this thing works.
Yeah.
and,
Yeah.
and then you just double down on the things that work, and it starts working better, and you get some momentum, and you keep rolling and rolling and rolling. And so that is the cool part, is when the light bulb hits, you really do get hooked. And that's kind of been the fun part. But yeah, I'm gonna be more consistent than most everybody on here because I've seen what the end result looks like.
Right. Well, I'm a huge fan of Gary V, and if you're on social media at all, it's a guy that you will see everywhere all the time because that's what he does. And and I don't, I haven't tuned in to some of his stuff in a hot minute, maybe the last 6 months, because he changes his thoughts on a lot of things. But for a long time, he has been big on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has been his, like, if you want to find a place to be, that's where you
Mhm.
need to be. And part of the reason, obviously, is that he looks at, he says he works, what was, he manages in attention, or deals in attention. And so, you look at a platform like Instagram for realtors, especially, and now, granted, you create the world you want to see on those platforms, but like when I scroll through my Instagram, it's house tours, it's, here's this class thing that they're doing or whatever, but it's just realtor on there. But when I come to LinkedIn and I scroll through there, I don't see very many realtors, or I don't see very many people that are doing what I would consider to be something that's engaging there. So when you looked at LinkedIn as a platform, especially for real estate professionals, like, where's the opportunity, and what should people be doing in order to make sure that the time and effort that they put into it is going to, bear fruit?
Yeah. This is like one of the most, I think, important uh conversation points, because when you look at the other platforms, and you like Instagram, there's so much competition on these platforms like Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. And you can carve out an audience there for sure, but there's also this element of like, there are so many people creating content in the real estate space that you being able to kind of break through is much more difficult than LinkedIn.
Yeah.
LinkedIn doesn't have the same competition for content that the other platforms do. And as a result, you can go in there and you can make a splash pretty quickly.
Mhm.
So it's a competition thing, right? It's like you can go and like have stiff competition, or you could come to a platform and carve out a name for yourself pretty dang quick. Um and and I love competition, but if I have the choice of going to a platform that I can start winning on much quicker,
Mhm.
and build a name and a brand for myself, compared to a platform that would take a lot longer and might not even work, I'm gonna choose option one all day long.
Yeah. Well, and speak a little bit to the fact that, when you look at the people that are on LinkedIn, right? The actual users of the platform,
Mhm.
it's dramatically different than what you would get on a TikTok or an Instagram or even a Facebook to some extent. So why is it that for real estate professionals, when you're looking to actually want to do business, why is it that LinkedIn actually gives you an advantage, when you look at the audience?
Like, people are ready to talk business on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
Like, that's the difference, right? Facebook, you know, it's it's more about like seeing what everybody's up to.
Yep.
Uh, People come to LinkedIn with like primes for business,
Mhm.
learning, networking. And so, I tell people like, if typically you're going to be trying to find somebody in your local market. All right, you can find audiences. You can search filter within LinkedIn, or if you're into Sales Navigator, you can go Sales Navigator. But you can find people in certain industries, geographic locations, and really like hone in on kind of where your target market is and maybe who that target market is. And then you can create a networking plan off of that. Like, how are you going to go after this audience? How are you going to, for some, like, it's all right. We have a sort of this town that's, I live in Dallas, massive, city, harder to do something like this. But if you think about like the smaller communities like within, um, there's an opportunity for you as a realtor to like become that local, the most known person and the connector of all the other local people. And when I say that, I mean like restaurant owners, business owners, principals at schools, getting involved in the community. And LinkedIn gives you an opportunity to do that, to build those relationships online, to take it offline.
Yeah.
And so it's a huge opportunity, to be able to get the right people seeing your content.
Well, and the other great thing is they have jobs usually. So they have the ability
Usually
to
do.
buy a house. You don't have somebody that's sitting at their house during the middle of the day unemployed looking at your content on Instagram or TikTok, scrolling through relentlessly. They're actually professionals. They have jobs, they have careers, they're trying to better themselves. And therefore, you're going to find a lot more people that are interested in, and not just buying a house for themselves, but there's a ton of investors. I mean, when you look online, when I scroll through and the people on your feed, there are a lot
Mhm.
of folks that are involved in purchasing homes all over the country, doing different types of transactions, whether they're located in California and they're buying homes in Texas, or they're located in Texas and they're buying homes in Georgia, or whatever the case may be. It is a great place to run into folks that are looking to, expand their portfolio. And so, that's not something that you're going to typically find, at least in a great concentration on some of these other platforms. It's kind of hit or miss. You may get some of those, but you're also going to get, like I said, the guy living in his basement at 45 years old that is still with his parents. You know what I mean? So it's the eyeballs tend to hold a little more value, right?
They do. They do. Like, I mean, can you, if you have a target like of any kind, right? And one of the rules like in marketing and sales is like, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one, right? So instead of like this catch-all mindset, like, do you have like a niche? And it doesn't have to be like this really, really detailed niche, but like, are you working with investors? Like, do you want to work with investors? All right, if you do, the content that you're going to create for an investor is completely different than a first-time home buyer, right? And so first-time home buyers are not going to really be familiar with the process of buying a home, what goes into it, how much money, etc. An investor typically has done a lot of real estate deals.
Mhm.
And so the conversation points are just completely different. So if you're like, I want to start, tapping into the investor business that is there. I want to go find it. I want to source it, and then I want to bring like leads in for that. Then maybe you just do what you're doing with your other audience on the other platforms or within your local network of face to face. But then you take LinkedIn and you're like, I'm gonna really focus on these people. Then you can nail it down to, all right, I want investors. I can kind of do this all over the country, because investors are not just specific to the region. um, like you said, California, trying to get investment properties in Texas, and so then you just kind of develop a strategy based upon that audience, and LinkedIn is just like built to help you scale that.
Yeah. Well, and it also has the great thing about LinkedIn again too is that it has built-in tools like you've mentioned a couple
Mhm.
times, LinkedIn
Yeah.
Navigator, which if you go to Facebook, I mean, you can run Facebook ads and you can do, they have similar things, but you can actually drill down to people that you're trying to connect with on a regular basis to reach out to with LinkedIn Navigator. And it's really relatively inexpensive. And it seems like at least that if let's say you're a realtor in Texas, right, and you want to deal with people coming in from out of state or investors, well, there's a big referral community within the real estate world. So if a California client or California realtor has a client that's looking to buy investment properties in Texas, they can't do that themselves because they don't have to fly here and get licensed here. So they need to find someone to refer that business to and create a relationship with here locally. And a lot of the agents that I know that have had incredible success, and they do it in a different way. Like there's a couple Remax agents I know that go to all the conventions every year. Like that's their main thing because they network with other agents across the country. And therefore, when they have a client moving that direction, they send them business and vice versa. And so if you can tap these relationships on LinkedIn and actually have a good connection with somebody out of state, other realtors, then that's a great source for referral business when people are moving here. So if you're an agent, right? If somebody came to you as a realtor and said, okay, I want to really start getting after on LinkedIn. What would your strategy be to start with about what to post, when to post, what type of content? And I actually saw recently, and this is the first time, I'm maybe behind the curve on it, but I saw some version of Reels on my LinkedIn feed now where
Yeah.
it's just videos. Like they used to be embedded in the post, but now there's actually like a real feed, just like you would get on Facebook or anything else. So what are you seeing, or how would you start posting stuff?
Yeah, that's LinkedIn is rolling out some new video features like as we speak. And so I think everybody's going to start seeing more and more of that. They've been testing it out and working on it for a little bit now. There is like they have said that they're going to put a little more emphasis on video content, which is good for everybody to know, right? It's good because traditionally LinkedIn has been more of like a written content with, a picture or something like that. Those tend to do well, but videos making a play here. So then the question, like you said, is like, what do I do? What's my starting point? How do I create content? What content do I create? The thing I tell people at the very beginning, like step one is like, you have to know who you're talking to. So that has to be like the foundation,
Right.
right? So, um, are you trying to reach real estate investors? Are you trying to help first time home buyers? Are you like, what does that ideal client look like for you? Because again, everything you do and every piece of content that you create is going to kind of come from that, right?
Mhm.
And maybe it's not a niche in that, like it's a certain type of borrower. Maybe the niche or the focus is like people living in a certain area
Right.
or Texas, investors trying to get investment properties in Texas. So there's ways to do it, but like taking I posted about this yesterday, I think on LinkedIn. Like, if you're unsure who that target audience is, just jump on Chat GPT or whatever AI platform you're into, and and just ask Chat GPT to kind of go through this scenario with you. Like, I'm a real estate agent in this area. I want to create like a social selling LinkedIn strategy, but I'm not sure who I should target as my audience.
Mhm.
Can you help me, ask questions so that we can figure out who my ideal audience would be, and then ask it something like, ask me one question at a time, because if you don't, there's going to be like 1,000 questions and you're going to be lost. But
Yeah.
go in there, do that, and then you can kind of like figure out and say, is this who I think it would be? And then you kind of have an idea. So you start with that foundation, and then with LinkedIn has a lot of sales opportunity that the other platforms really just don't have, like baked in, like we already said. And one of the main features is the profile page that you have. So that profile page, like if you look at it compared to most of the other platforms,
Mhm.
minus Facebook has a pretty good one that, but it's much more like detailed than the others.
Yeah.
There's a lot more you can do with it. About sections, where you've been, where you've worked. There's something called a featured section a lot of people don't know about, but it's a great call to action opportunity. Your banner image, your headline, all of these things are just really great opportunities. And so what I tell people is, you got to kind of switch your thought process. Um, we're not just like consuming content on social. Like, if you are in sales and you want to win business with it, you got to switch your mind to like this social selling kind of mindset.
Mhm.
and it's that platform, or the profile page is like this really, really important piece. So I say, take like
Right.
the traditional thought process of thinking that it's an online resume,
Mhm.
get that out of your mind,
Right.
and turn it into a sales page. Not a like a, you know, a soft sales page, not
Sure.
like an aggressive, annoying page.
Right.
But you want to do a couple things. You want to say who you help, how you help them, and then you want to lend to, like, give some credibility, right? Because if they
Mhm.
don't know you, they want to know that you know what you're doing. And so for me, it's like, um, I help the mortgage industry, mortgage and real estate industry win business with LinkedIn. Um, so that's who I help. That's how I help them. And then I give a couple of pieces of like credibility, like 40 under 40 top mortgage professional, co-author of the Rethink Everything book, etc. And so once you got that done, the
Mhm.
foundation kind of built, then you can go out and really start engaging, like commenting, liking, your ideal customers' content, and then creating content yourself.
Mhm.
And not to like spend all the time talking here on this point, but like the stage of content then becomes, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to, give you stories and share experiences that I've had.
Mhm.
I'm going to give you a glimpse into like me as a person. So
Mhm.
things that I do outside of, being a realtor.
Yep.
And, and then I'm just going to like try to solve the problems of my main customer.
Right.
Value as much as possible. Stop trying to sell every moment, and really just get in there and try to say, the other person on the other's end of this like social profile is a human being, and everybody else I'm going to be, we forget that on social. Like, how do I just help this person out, and how do
Mhm.
I become the most valuable realtor they know?
Yeah.
Do
Well,
it, and good things will come.
you said something there I want you to elaborate on a little bit too, because I think it's I think people understand it, but I still feel like it, in talking with folks that do this on the regular, that help people with these kind of things, I think it still gets glossed over some, and I don't think people understand the importance, and that's the engagement side of things. So when you and you do a great job with this, of course, and I found this in a random way, or I should say I understood the value of it in a roundabout way that was by accident, because my wife is a realtor, and she is, she's a mom. She's got kids. So, we have kids. She's got kids. We got kids. So she's on Facebook constantly, just liking people's stuff, commenting on their trips. And, it's just the nature of her. She
Mm.
was born in South Louisiana. She's a, Southern whatever girl, manners, nice, sweet, and so that's just what they do. Like, oh, that's so beautiful. Like I've been swimming in the first day of school photographs and everything for the last, 2 days, because everybody around us is all, going to school. And so, but she has spent time prior to all this. She would always be on there liking and commenting and, just truly engaging, because that's just who she is. But that had taken her real estate business and really kind of put it on overdrive, because whenever she would post anything at all, like, and she doesn't post very often, but when she did, it would just get massive amounts of likes and comments, and she knew how to respond and all these kind of things. So her post would just stay up there. And I'm sitting there watching, because I would give her a hard time. I'm like, you don't spend enough time marketing yourself. Like, you got to get out there and put yourself. It's like, no. And then I sat back and I'm like, she's a genius without realizing it, in that she just spent all of her time engaging with other people's stuff because she genuinely wanted to. And that alone, gave her such a big boost. And when I go on LinkedIn and I'm there, and I see those people that are constantly engaging on different types of posts and activities, those are the ones that tend to have the most success. Can you speak a little bit to why that is such a powerful thing, and why you don't think many people do it, or put an emphasis on it, especially because it's so easy?
Yeah, I don't think people realize the importance of it, and it's because of I think it's because of how we've social media has evolved, right? Like, when we're so used to just consuming and scrolling without stopping,
Yeah.
and just getting those little dopamine hits, and we're in it for us a lot of times, just to like check out or whatever. When we're talking about like social strategy, like social selling strategy, again, your perspective has to change. And like, for the people who say, I don't want to create content, I'm bad at it, I don't feel comfortable, I would challenge that. Like practice is one of those things that makes you better.
Sure.
But if you were like, you can win business on social media just with a content or a commenting and engagement strategy.
Mhm.
Like it's, and the reason is because there's a person, like I said, on the other side of that comment or that post. And if you take social media and you kind of remove the technology, it's just like you're going into like a networking event or like you're in person somewhere. And it's like, if you were in person, what would look different?
Right.
Right. Like, so with me, not much is going to look different. Like, I'm going to be talking to you. We're going to be hanging out. We're going to be chatting about business or life or whatever it is. That's the equivalent of me getting into somebody's comments, right? Or
Yep.
sending them a DM. Like we're having a conversation, and any one-sided conversation, people know, is just like not a fun thing to be a part of, right? And so if you're going and you're just posting and then, leaving for, a week and then jumping back on, or have automated posts with your company and expect business to somehow come through the door, that's just not how it works, because that's not how people work.
Yeah.
And so the one of the things that I say quite often is that there's this psychological principle called familiarity bias, and it just means that the more that a person sees you, the more that they trust you.
Mhm.
And that's, I mean, if you think about the like how profound that is, right?
Yeah.
Like this proven, tested principle, then the goal should be to just be seen as often as possible,
Mhm.
right? So
Mhm.
like, don't worry about annoying people with posting too much or commenting too much. Work on just trying to provide as much value as you can. Do that as often as you can. And comments allow you to be seen consistently, daily, and it doesn't take a lot of lift. And that trust will be built even faster. So, social media gives you the ability to build trust at scale, which is
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Well, and just on a technical side of things, I mean, when you engage with someone else and they respond back and forth, the algorithm, everybody's favorite, boogeyman, looks at that and goes, "Hey, these two people, if I put them together more often, they will spend more time on the platform." Because at the end of the day, you got to remember, whatever platform it is, okay, the algorithm is built or designed to try to keep you on the platform as much as possible. So if you tend to engage with someone more often, or they tend to engage back with you more often, then when you're there, they're going to see your content and you're going to see theirs, because the platform goes, "Hey, these two people are on at the same time, or they were on. I want to make sure that I show this person, what this other person has posted recently, because they engage with each other." And so, just from, again, not even from, if you want to take the, hey, just be a good human being and care about people, because that's ultimately what you need to do. But just take that out of the equation and go, if you're just going to play the technical game, that's what it's built for. That's what it's designed for. That's why they created these things, because our attention is their data.
It's so true. Like, if you realize what it takes to be seen by the person you want to be seen, then I don't know that anybody would not just start commenting and DMing and engaging with, you know, their audience. It's incredible. Like, you're exactly right on how the algorithm thinks. And as bad of a word as sometimes people see that, and as many times as the algorithm is blamed for not getting the engagement that you want on a post, the algorithm really is there to do like one thing, and that's to like really show the content that it thinks the person who is viewing wants to see.
Right.
So if you just focus on giving value and engaging with the audience you want, the algorithm is going to pick up on that. Typically, it's going to start putting you into more and more contact. And, anybody knows that the more contact and conversations you have with people, The more a relationship grows, just do that over time, and that equals friendships down the road that turn into business, right?
Yep. Yep. It's relationships are the name of the game. That's what this whole thing's about. So let's talk a little bit about, okay, let's say that I know my audience. I'm a real estate professional or realtor, and I want to start getting some investor business, right? That's what I'm looking to try to do. So if you were in that circumstance and you were like, okay, I'm going to focus on LinkedIn and I'm going to start really hammering away here, what type of content would you be posting? Would you, do you coming up with articles? Are you reposting stuff? Are you creating your own blogs? Are you using the LinkedIn article functions? Where are you coming up with content ideas? You mentioned, which we can get into, Chat GPT. I'm a Chat GPT dork. I spend too much time on it. I know way more about it than maybe I should, but my favorite, one of the tools that I use personally, and I need to do more of it because it's trying to do loans and edit podcasts and stuff takes up a lot of time. But it's really simple, and I've done it a few times. And it just needs to add it to my routine. But is to I'll take this conversation that we're having right now. I can take the transcript and download it into ChatGPT, and then I'll ask it to highlight a few points that we were talking about that were specific. I'll pick one of those points, and then I'll say, create a blog post or a LinkedIn article, because I can give it very specific things on what I want it to do based on this topic that we talked about. And then it'll take what we discussed and put it into a LinkedIn article format like that. And then I can add a few graphics to it, go in and edit it, make sure it says the things that I want it to say, and it's kind of in my voice, because it is in our voice because we're talking right now. But go in and make sure that it's me, and then post that thing. And that entire process, if you do that from start to finish, might take you 20 minutes. And if that, and if once you nail it down, you start getting good at it, it takes even less time. So what would you do if you were, trying to find investors and trying to, deal with relocations or whatever? What type of content would you start looking at posting on a regular basis?
Yeah, great question. And a great example of like how to use ChatGPT effectively. But if it's me, I am going to. I mean, I'm going to post content, but I'm going to have a really like, and we could maybe we're diving into this next, but like I'm going to have a really strong engagement strategy, like a comment strategy.
Mhm.
So I I view content, I think, a little differently than most. I think obviously like the content and how we post,
Mhm.
like that is content. Typically, that's what people mean when they say content. I take it a step further because I think that comments are also content,
Okay.
and you have an opportunity to share your thoughts, your perspective, your view, and your ability, like your knowledge, like you get to show
Mhm.
that off a little bit in the comment section.
Okay.
So I would do a couple things. I would identify like who the right people are, like who are the like influencer accounts in this niche.
Mhm.
So I'd go on a fact finding mission to try to figure out who those people are.
Okay.
And then as soon as I nail them down and find them, I'm gonna follow them. So if you go to if as soon as you follow somebody or connect with somebody, there is a bell that shows up in the top right hand corner of their profile.
Mhm.
You can select that bell, and it's going to give you three options. And the option that is just like generally always selected is basically let LinkedIn decide when a notification or a post, matches what your interests are.
Okay.
So if this is but again, we want to like know this account, and we want to know who's following it and engaging with it, right? So I'm going to take this bell, and I'm going to do all notifications, right? So like anytime they post, I want to know about it. So it will actually then turn into a notification that shows up, and when they've posted, you can go and engage with their content. So I'm going to do a couple things. I want to know who is engaging with this influencer, because odds are that they are going to be investors of some kind, right?
Mhm.
So my audience will be living here. As this kind of like expands and I get to know these main accounts even more, um, my content strategy at first is to see what content of theirs is working really really well, and then Once I have that information, that knowledge, I can start creating similar content. I'm not stealing it, I'm not copying it, but I'm just kind of going on the same topics.
Sure.
The other thing though is like when they post, if you go in there and add your thoughts, not just like, wow, great post, but like, you give
I should
your
think it out.
insights on what's important for
Yeah.
the investor to know and a little bit different angle. You're going to get followers from that. You're going to get engagement. You're going to get seen. You're going to become associated with that thought leader.
Yeah.
And so, again, the same thing is true over time. That thought leader, those people who are following that thought leader, they're going to trust you more. And then, as your content is kind of being created, you get an opportunity uh, to be seen as that thought leader. So that's the kind of the direction I would go. Now, when I'm creating content, um, I would probably take a couple of different routes. I would do written content with a picture of some kind.
Mhm.
Um, and I would just give like, stories of investors that I've worked with and like some cool insights, or I would celebrate if another investor like a partner that I've worked with quite a few times gets another property. I'd ask that investor if I could share that, and or any reviews that I get on that topic. I'm going to share those things and just start showing people that I'm in this industry, I'm in this business, this is a niche I'm really involved in.
Mhm.
And then in order to like build that scale at trust, or build that trust at scale, I'm going to jump on some video content as well.
Mhm.
And it doesn't need to be overproduced. It just needs to be sort of the same thing, you talking. And, you can be doing that like walking outside. You can be doing that in your office, but just make it like a real conversation that you're having on a topic related to that industry. That's what I would do to start.
Do you think when it comes to video specifically, do you think that people get too wrapped up in creating the perfect video and that, really they just need to, our good buddy, push the red button? Like, is that really what needs to happen? Because, it seems like even with me personally, when I talk to agents about this stuff all the time, because I do, because, we do this and this is what we speak about. But, that's always the feedback. It's like, well, I really want to say this, but I had to re-record it 6 times and da 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 da. And I'm like, you're a human and you're gonna flub things and you're gonna mess up and it's not gonna be perfect. But that's what makes you human, and that's why people will engage with you, because they can see you as a human being as opposed to just some well polished talking head that they would see on cable news.
Yeah. We all want to come across as looking beautiful and speaking clearly at every instant. Um, I will just tell you what a lot of these platforms are moving to. They're moving to really focusing on the just natural video that would come from your phone instead of the overproduced video content.
So they're
Um,
giving a little bit more boost to those these days, you think?
they're giving a lot more. They're focusing on those a lot more. And what that also does is it kind of levels the playing field, right? So it's more about like what is the content, not what is, because you put makeup right on on a pig, or I'll say that, so I'll be nice, right?
Careful, careful.
Um, and you put makeup on a pig and make the pig look beautiful, right?
Right.
That idea, like the content might not be great, but you throw in some awesome music and you throw in some like really high quality editing, and then make and like that might get more views. But what they want is like really good content that helps
Right.
somebody, right? And um, so if you're doing that, your video is probably going to be successful, like creating content that's helpful. So I would say do what you want, try it out. I'm big on like experimenting, right? Like so I
Mm.
just so everybody knows, I do that all the time. I will do things intentionally that I think will bomb, like do terrible. And a lot of times they do. And then like so I'll just test things. And captions are cool. It helps with like people who can't hear, like to
Yeah.
be able to read, and it looks cool too. But you don't
Well,
have
it
to
helps
do
too, because when you say people can't hear, but a lot of times if you're scrolling through your phone, at least
100%.
those of us that are considerate individuals, and there's a lot
Yep.
of people that aren't, including my wife,
Right.
is when you're scrolling through your phone, you're not playing the sound at full blast. You're
Right.
probably just got it on low. So if you can watch a video and read what they're saying, it's
Yeah.
incredibly helpful.
It really is. So, you know, I think that we as people who are not comfortable being on camera,
Mhm.
which is a lot of people in our industry, um, we make a lot of excuses on why not to do something.
Yeah.
And so I think instead of making the excuses,
Excuses.
make the
Make
content.
the content. Right.
And that will when you start doing and testing yourself and seeing what works and what doesn't, just get over like what you think you look like. Good things happen. Just I tell people all the time, like just okay, you're nervous, you're scared to do something, you're scared to put it out there, you don't like the way you look. Th- Great, those feelings are valid, right?
Mhm.
But just get
Everybody
over
feels
it.
that way. I don't, there's very few people. Well, there's a few, but not as many people out there. Like I look good every day. Like who doesn't want to see
Right.
me? You know?
Right. Exactly. I hate the way I look on video. Um, in most pictures, but I'm gonna do it anyways, right?
Right.
Gonna do it. And if social media, winning business on social media, is built for the people who do,
Yeah.
right? People who
Yep.
take action. If you don't take action, you won't have success. If you do take action, you do it over a period of time. The formula works every time. It's like 1 + 1 = 2.
Yeah.
It's always two. And if you do the right things over a period of time, that timeline is different for every person. But if you do those things, you will see success on social media.
You said something a minute ago, which I also triggered in my head, which I think is something I've kind of experimented with a few times. But it's just like anything else, you get onto something and then you do it a little bit and then you move on to something else, and it's how we all nature of all of us. But the idea of narratives, because when you look at people that post stuff online and the the realtor that comes on and says, hey, first time home buyers, make sure that your credit score matches this, and these are the three things that you want to pay attention to. Okay, great, that's helpful, thank you. But the other person comes on and says, I want to tell you something that just happened to me yesterday. I was working with a client, really good friend of mine. We've been looking for a house forever, and they went out and bought a car. And they didn't realize, because, and it's my fault because I didn't tell them, or whatever, however the story goes, that message, the way that they, convey it versus here's the three steps to this, or I mean, there's lots of ways to do it, but it seems like, that narratives are incredibly important when it comes to getting a message across, because so I'm a conspiracy dork, in weird things that I just find fascinating. And there's a YouTube channel, my favorite YouTube channel. It's called Y Files, the Y Files. Check it out. It talks about Bigfoot, UFOs, whatever. I mean, but the way the guy does it is he starts the video out and he tells you the story as if it's true. He tells you this is what happened, and then this happened. And I've watched the thing before when I first started. I was like, how do I not know about this? How did I not hear about this? I'm going, it's blowing my mind. And then he goes through the whole narrative and he gets to the end and then he's like, okay, so, how much of that story is bullshit and how much is real? Well, here's what I found. This is not true because of the, and so he kind of breaks it down and debunks some of it, and tells you how some things are true. But it's so captivating and it's so incredible, because like I will sit there and watch a 45-minute video about something I don't really even care that much about, but because he tells the story so well and it draws me in for that 20 minutes, like I can't turn it off. And I think that we get so bogged down in trying to give. I mean, education's a big important thing, especially financial education. But if you can take that message and you can put a story around it, I think it's so much more impactful. Are you seeing that, with your clients and what you guys are doing?
100%. 100%. It's like I think that the example that you gave of like the story you just told the difference. Um, like I felt a difference just like
Yeah.
hearing it. You say, I mean, that's what happens. We get drawn into a story. It's why we go to movies. We like stories. We're built on stories. And if you can become a great storyteller, you will make a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's just the truth. And there's a saying that facts tell, but stories sell.
Hmm.
And it is so true. So
Yeah.
I could put two different pieces of content up, and one of them could say, again, it's like me just telling you, like, you somebody can argue with your points. Like
Hmm.
if you say something, here are, do these three things. First off, people don't like be told what to do, right? And then they could say, I don't know if that's true. I don't think that actually works. But if you say, here is a story of something that worked for me, here are the three things that I did that turned into, however much dollar in business, then you can't
Can't
argue with it.
argue with it. Right.
Right? It's like it's your story. You experienced it, and I'm going to listen because you said that you did some steps and it actually worked. So there's just like it softens right out the gate. It just softens things when people know you're telling a story. It's kind of like the once upon a time. As soon as somebody says that, you know that a story is coming, and you kind of like you're listening a little bit better.
Yeah.
Tell stories. It makes a difference. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think I've tried it a few times just to, and it's not, I say try it. It's just like, hey, here's what happened and here's how it went. And I think it's just, it's so much more captivating in a lot of ways and gets people engaged in what is happening and what's going on. And that's why, like, even on the podcast world, some of the most successful podcasts that are out there right now are the ones that are like the serial, murder stories or whatever, where it's like part one, they give you this whole long story and it's an hour and a half and you're like captivated, and then it's like, stay tuned for part two, and you're like, oh, I can't wait. So it's, those are the types of things that are going to get people interested and going to have people engage with what you're doing, because if you can, teacher, it's like being talked to versus being talked with, right? When we're sitting down having a conversation, when we're doing a podcast, you and I are having a conversation, anybody listening, it feels like they're a part of that conversation, right? If we sat here and did a webinar and went through about, here's the mechanisms of how LinkedIn, and we did all that, that's a lot less interesting than two human beings talking to each other, and this is how I see it and this is how I see it. And that to me, even drives the point home further that it's such an impactful thing when you can let somebody feel like they're a part of the conversation versus you're just standing in front of them in a seminar telling them how to, market their business.
Absolutely. Man, like just go out there. Just go out, just do what you do in
Yeah.
person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Exactly.
mean, like what do we do? Like
Yeah.
when we get together, it's so easy to tell stories. And that's all we do. We
Yeah.
don't like you and I are drinking a beer at a bar. We're not like talking about like, hey Mike, um, dude, I know you're a lender. Do these three things and you're gonna get more business. I mean, we like I would be like, man, Mike, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I heard about this other guy
Yeah.
or this other loan officer. Man, he went and did this thing and it was crazy. He told me like all of these, leads came flowing in. I was like, have you ever tried that? Like, and so just stop thinking of social media as like this weird world. It's a weird world because there's weird people on there, but
Yeah.
when you kind of craft your audience and it's the people you want to do business with, man, just go out there and treat them like people and just be yourself like you normally would in person. It will transform everything that you're doing. It will add a lot more business to your pipeline.
One last thing I want you to talk about before we go is focus. So you are the epitome of this in that, you're on this platform on LinkedIn every day, working, going away. I don't know, I don't, I just friended you on Facebook the other day because I shared it, the event there, but I haven't looked at your Facebook page or any of the other ones. But I would imagine because you spend so much time on LinkedIn, you're not necessarily incredibly engaged on the other ones. So how important when it comes to, especially from looking at it from a business point of view, how important is it in your mind to pick a platform, in this case, hopefully LinkedIn, but pick a platform and just go all in on that one platform instead of trying to do a little bit of something on every single one? How do you feel? Do you think that has value to it? Do you think it is better to be everywhere? Like, what do you think?
I don't know, it's a lot of commitment, to be on a platform and try to get the most out of it. I think like focus really matters, and each platform has a little bit different, feel and you know attack plan.
Hmm.
Um, it's where's your business at? Where do they live? And then again, we go back to the competition question. Like, am I for the amount of work that I'm going to put into something, is there a platform that I can get more bang for my buck and really see the fruits of? Luckily for me, um, you know, I was I was jumping in to LinkedIn uh, before Gary Vee started really pushing it
Hmm.
by chance, right? And as soon as he started pushing it, it got a lot more traction, which
Hmm.
I was very thankful for,
Hmm.
right? It did help.
Yeah, it's like buying apples or actually selling Apple stock right before Warren Buffett sold 50% of his Apple stock.
Right, right,
Yeah,
exactly. It's just I timed it well, and it was just complete coincidence. But there's so much opportunity to understand the community that exists on each platform, and if you're
yeah,
spread out, it's really hard to get that nuance and understand those little like pieces of differences.
yeah.
And so my, you know, LinkedIn, I feel, you know, like I have really honed in and figured that platform out. And it's where I get a lot of engagement, and it's where I've made sort of a brand and a name for myself. If I were to take the next step, I would look at one platform next, and then I would do a similar thing
Mhm.
with that platform. I would still do my LinkedIn stuff, but instead of going and spreading it out over multiple platforms, I would really just try to figure out how that platform functions, how it works, and then get really good at that one, and then maybe move to the next one. It's just a lot of work, man. It's a lot of work to keep up, and so just do what's most comfortable to you, and that you're most likely to keep going. If video content is tough for you, then I mean,
Don't do it.
Instagram and TikTok's going to be really, really challenging,
Yeah,
right? So get out there and find something that you can stick to, and then just learn it really, really well. And one of the cool things is that once you learn something really, really well, people want to know how to do it for themselves, and so you open up a whole nother opportunity for you to be able to be of value to people
yeah.
within your industry or outside of it.
Yeah, and when you learn something, I'm a big proponent of this, but when you spend time, whether it's, I like I said, I know more about Chat GPT than I should, but when you spend time focusing on something and learning about it and really getting into the weeds on how it works and what it does, then it's amazing how at some point you can take that, whatever that work is, off your plate a little bit and give it to somebody else who also is an expert at that thing and have them manage it for you when you start to scale. But the importance of learning it yourself is that you know the value of what you're paying for. So if, like, doing this stuff, I've done my fair share of video editing. I know how it works. I kind of can generally do it. But for me to sit down and edit a video is going to take an hour, where I can pay someone that can do it in 20 minutes, that has a process that does this every day, and that's part of their job. But I know in my mind what the value of that is because I spent time doing it and I know how it works, versus just kind of blindly paying somebody for something that you don't understand. And I've done that too many times in this podcast world, especially too, is paying someone to do something and then me going back and going, wait a minute, I can do that and it takes me like 10 minutes. So why am I paying this guy $200 a month? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So learning these things and getting into the weeds a little bit, it doesn't mean you perpetually have to do it yourself. It just means if you understand it and you know how it works, then when you're ready to pass that thing on to an employee, or you're ready to pass it on to, an outside contractor that's going to do that work for you so you can focus on your business or whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to understand the value of that service so much more. And speaking of value of service, before we go, I want you to tell everybody a little bit about what you do with your company, how you guys help people out, and the services that you offer, so they know if they want to get a little help, they can reach out to you too.
Yeah, so really what it is, I have a newsletter. I think that is probably the most beneficial thing for anybody who wants to get connected. You can find that on my LinkedIn page. A lot of LinkedIn coaching, um, and so my biggest thing is to provide value to the mortgage and real estate industries, and to try to help like you win business with social. So the coaching and all of that stuff that we do, group coaching and things like that, it's all built to help you increase revenue. And so if you guys want like free conversations on how to do that, my newsletter is a great resource. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, feel free to DM me or send me an email. So
Yeah. And Dan's great, by the way. He's a great resource. I've reached out to him a couple times with some stuff that I'm doing, and was like, "Hey, call me." And we chatted, and he's like, "Try this, try this, try this," and that was it. And and it's great. So I highly recommend, especially if you think that this platform, that LinkedIn could be an avenue for you, that you want to start going down that road. Reach out. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Call somebody, talk to them. Create relationships, find out more, because whatever it is that you want to focus on, if once you decide upon that, then you got to start doing your research and getting out there and finding these things. And like I said, Dan's a fantastic resource, so I certainly recommend that you reach out to him. So Dan, thank you so much. I appreciate your time, man. We moved this up a little bit earlier today, so thanks for being flexible with me. But anybody that needs any help, reach out to him. You can find him on LinkedIn. All his contact information is on his profile page. Like he practices what he preaches. So go check it out and learn all you can, because it's a great platform, and there's a lot of opportunity here because a lot of real estate professionals are not tapping into it. So hit them where they ain't, as they say. All right, Dan. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Thanks for everybody that stuck around. We'll see you back next week.